Hello and welcome to Salt and Light Podcast. Hello everybody and welcome to today's podcast. I am KJ and we'll be doing hot topics. Today's hot topic is abortion. Abortion is all over the news right now. Everywhere you see, everywhere you look, abortion. Late-term abortions, how do people feel about it, and the justification thereof. So obviously, if you're watching or listening to the show, you'll know I'm coming from a Christian worldview, a Christian standpoint on these things. And I want to give my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ some ammunition to refute the way that people are talking about our unborn neighbors. So let's see. Right now in the news, we have, of course, the bill that just passed in New York, right? Allows abortion, passed the 24-week cutoff that used to be there as a law in New York. See, the problem with any pro-lifer is going to have with this, obviously, the reason we're so upset about it. Not only is it still, abortion is still, I guess, technically legal. And even though murder is illegal, abortion is legal somehow. But the way this bill is written, and I've seen a lot of people trying to say, oh, this is fear-mongering or whatever, right? The facts are, it says that there are the reason for late-term abortions can be for also the mental health of the mother, and the word health in this bill is not defined. So it can be for any kind of health. Let's say, me having a baby, I'm 30 weeks pregnant, and me having a baby is going to be such a financial strain on me that it's going to cause me mental problems. And now the mom saying that can have, as the left says, this discussion with her doctor, her provider, on whether or not to keep a baby, even though, in the pro-choicers realm, this is a viable life outside the mother. Okay, so their go-to argument always has been, hey, when are you not allowed to perform abortions anymore? And they say when the baby, the fetus, is viable outside the mother, then it becomes a life, right? That is what any pro-choicer will tell you, if they have a conscience, because that's a way of them keeping their conscience. There's a lot of people that'll straight up tell you, yeah, it's a baby, we don't care, we should be allowed to kill them. So there's that. But they also, in this bill, it also took out murder of an unborn baby is no longer a thing, that to be charged with murder, the baby has to be born first. So if you kill a pregnant woman, it's no longer double homicide. So they took that in New York, that's no longer a thing, and they're allowing late-term abortions. Now, the problem too is in late-term abortion, and I actually read a few stories of women that were, saying this was a good thing, that it's okay, that they had heartbreaking stories of them having to choose abortion, late-term abortion, right? And I'm here to tell you there is no medical reason, not one, to have a late-term abortion. Let's say health of the mother, right? She gets preeclampsia really bad. She's about to have a stroke. She's 27 weeks pregnant. You know what they would do is they would actually perform a C-section. Okay. So this mom is going to have this baby via delivery. Either they induce labor or they're going to do an emergency C-section. She is going to deliver a baby. Now, the late-term abortion dictates whether that baby will be alive when it is born or if it will be dead when it is born. So don't let them sit there and fool you that this is medically necessary to save a mother's life, because there are many babies that are born preterm. I know somebody personally who had their baby was born at 24 weeks and is alive today because she was in NICU. So there's that. And the reason they're saying, is this going to be necessary for the health of the baby, is because they're saying the baby might have really bad birth defects and mental problems, or be like Down syndrome child or something really, really awful. Okay. And I get that. But is it okay to kill the child first before it's given a chance at life? Now, I believe if you have to make that decision, if your baby's going to be born, let's say with a brain that is not, it is just not going to be viable. This baby is going to die when it is born. It's a thing we have called hospice. You know, the elderly have it all the time, where they are made comfortable and they are given pain medications to relieve pain and discomfort, and we let nature take its course. That is what we do with people that are severely disabled, can't take care of themselves. They are on death's door. So it is not okay in any situation to kill somebody that is going to die. That's called euthanization. It's targeting people with mental handicaps. I believe that if your baby's going to have Down syndrome, that you shouldn't have the right to kill somebody who has Down syndrome. I just don't feel that's okay. That there are a lot of people with Down syndrome that are very happy to be alive. And if you can't handle it, that your baby's going to have mental illness or retardation or some kind of deformity, then give it to somebody who has a much bigger heart than you and can actually take care of that baby, because life is not yours to take, period. So, states that already actually have no gestational limitation on abortion would be Alaska, Colorado, District of Columbia, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, and Vermont have already had this in place before New York. So this should not come as a surprise that late-term abortions happen here in America. Again, there's no medical reason to abort the baby in a late term. You could deliver the baby, and if you decide to let the baby have life support, okay, but there's actually no reason to kill it in the womb and then deliver. That's not a real thing. Don't let them fool you. That is not a real thing. And no, I'm not a doctor, but this is common sense, people. Especially when you know people that have had very, very preterm babies, and their babies are alive today. This is not a thing. This shouldn't be a thing unless you want to discriminate against people with mental handicaps or deformities. And the only thing is, you know what? Everyone is so outraged. I've even seen pro-choice people outraged by this bill, okay? Because, oh, well, that baby's like almost fully developed. Well, tell me, the whole problem is we've allowed this in the first place. We kill our unborn babies in the first place. It doesn't matter if this baby is 8-week gestational age or 8-month gestational age. They have not, the problem with abortion is they're not defining what constitutes a human being, what constitutes a life. And when you're saying that it's okay to abort an 8-week-old gestational baby, but it's not okay to abort an 8-month gestational baby, that's a fallacy. You can't have both of them, because the 8-week baby is still a baby. The only difference between an 8-week baby and an 8-month baby is size and level of development. And wouldn't that be true if the baby was already born? Let's say it's 8 weeks old post-birth and 8-month-old post-birth. Both are still babies, right? One's bigger and one's more developed. Period. That's it. So you can't sit there and say, I believe you can have an early-term abortion, but you can't have late-term abortions. Do you see the problem with that? There's a problem with that. That's saying, well, we should save that one because it's bigger than the other one. It's more developed than the other one. No. According to Princeton University and according to God and the Bible and science and biology, life begins at conception. Secular science will tell you this as well. That they are able to, they did this experiment, they were able to actually see when life begins, and it begins at the moment of conception. Full scientific community now admits that life begins at conception. No, babies in the womb are not clumps of cells. These are not arguments anymore. The argument now for most people is, yeah, I know it's my baby, but I should be able to kill it. That's most people's argument. We're past the point of it's a clump of cells, or it's not a life, or it's a potential life. We know it's a life. We know it's a baby. We know pregnancy equals baby. We know that life begins at conception. We know all these things. We're past this. You got shame on you for allowing abortions in the first place, and now you're seeing the fallacies of your own policies. A lot of people don't know how abortions are performed. Abortions are disgusting, and actually they do, and this is scientific, they will tear off your baby's arms and its legs, and then they will decapitate it and disembowel it inside your womb and pull it out, reconstruct it on a plate to make sure they didn't leave any of it in there. And that is how an abortion is performed. If the baby is still very, very small, let's say 8-10 weeks, they can give you a pill which actually liquefies the tiny baby inside of you and causes you to have a miscarriage. But it does hurt. It's like They've proven that that is a very barbaric way to kill something by the means of those drugs. And it's a barbaric way to tear apart allow someone to tear apart your own baby while it's still inside of you, and then pull it out and reconstruct it on a plate. That's barbaric. Late-term abortions, they will snip the spinal cord before the baby is born, and then allow the mother to birth the baby. So think about that. The mother is still birthing the baby. It's just dead when it comes out because the mom is selfish and doesn't want to give up her baby for adoption. Or she thinks, oh, well, my baby's going to have a mental handicap, so I should just kill it. By that definition, I should be able to walk into a nursing home and somebody has severe Alzheimer's or something like that, and I should just be able to stab them in the face because they're not worthy of life, apparently. People with mental disabilities and severe disabilities aren't worthy of life, apparently, is what people are now trying to tell us. This is what God says about abortion. This is what God says about murder, because the definition of murder is taking another human's life, right? We know that if you terminate a pregnancy, there is not going to be a baby. That means taking another human being's life. Exodus 20:30, you shall not murder. That's pretty standard. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that one. Exodus 23:7, it says, have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Then we have Romans 13:9, the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other command there may be are summed up in this one command: love your neighbor. There are many other verses talking about God tells you that life is not yours to take. If you don't think your baby is going to survive, that is not your choice to make. It is God's alone. If your kid gets cancer, at what point am I able to walk up and kill your child because they're going to suffer and die? That's not a thing. This shouldn't be a thing. Life is God's to take, not yours, not anybody's, not a doctor's. We are against euthanasia, guys. We shouldn't be allowed to euthanize people. We shouldn't be allowed to kill babies. And that is what this whole thing comes down to. God said, love your neighbor. If you are killing your neighbor, you are not loving your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Killing is not an act of mercy. Killing your baby is not a loving thing to do. Everyone deserves life. That is the basic fundamental human right. A right to live. Just to live. And if you don't want to have a baby and you're not ready to have a baby, then don't have sex. And if someone has raped you, I am so sorry. That is awful. But what is the problem with rape? The problem with rape is someone is doing something to your body that you are not okay with, that you have said, no, I don't want you to do that to my body. It's a violation of my body. And by you turning around and killing the baby inside of you, that's violating someone else's body. You're tearing that child apart. You're ending their life. So someone violated your body does not make it okay for you to violate someone else's body. I really sympathize with women that are pregnant by rape, which is very rare. Well, I should say it is a very small percent of abortions that are actually performed are because of rape or incest. But then again, I'm not paying for the sins of my father. I don't have to pay for them. Your baby shouldn't have to pay for the sins of its father. And you should put that baby up for adoption if you cannot love it. So, all in all, love your neighbor. Life is not yours to take. Love your baby. Choose life. If you can't love your baby, let someone else. Death is not an option. This is an age of death. This is awful. Love your neighbor.